And welcome everyone to Sports Talk Line, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. And on today's episode of Battle for the Big East, we're going to be Troy Mauriello as we talk St. John's basketball and the interesting season that has been the Red Storms basketball season. Troy, how you doing today?
I'm hanging in there, Tom. Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure to come on.
Yeah, so I guess, I'm going to start off this episode asking you this very simple question that probably has a very complex answer. That one question is, what would be the one word you could use to describe St. John's basketball season? Because they had NCAA tournament expectations coming in. So far, they've fallen short of it. They've had some spurts here and there, but what's the one word you can use to describe this season?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. If I was going for like a technical term, I would definitely say inconsistent. They've certainly been inconsistent this season. We've seen them kind of put on these great performances, as we saw this past week when they beat Butler by 35 points. They go on the road, they win Xavier for the first time since 2015. We've seen them win these types of games. Obviously, they played a great game against Seton Hall at Walsh Gym about a month ago. We know that it's there. We just haven't been able to see it consistently enough. And I think that's, I guess, another word that I would use is frustrating, because, we know that this team was capable of going to the NCAA tournament. Maybe the expectations were a little bit too lofty when you look at, making it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. I don't think that this team has the talent for that. But, when you look at the talent that they have, I think that they certainly have the talent that they should be in a better spot that they're in right now, which is, not even really on the NCAA tournament picture. So it's been inconsistent. It's been frustrating. I could probably use a lot of other words that involve curses, so I'm not going to say any of those. So, it's been a maddening season for the fans, and I'm sure for the players as well, because they know that they're better than this. And like I said, we know that this team should be in a better position than they are right now. And I think that's the frustrating thing is they're in a position really where they have to kind of win out now to have a real shot at the NCAA tournament.
Now, you kind of mentioned, I guess, the struggles and the inconsistency. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. What do you think have been some of the weaknesses for St. John's this season?
Yeah, I think that starting really right off the bat, Julian Champagnie, I don't know if he's been himself the entire season. He's kind of been in and out, obviously. He's been great the last couple of games, but he had about a 5-game stretch there where he really struggled. And that's not the main reason, but that's, just really one of the first things that comes to mind. I think the coaching, to be honest, has not really been what we've seen the first couple of seasons. I don't know if this team is really structured the way to play the Mike Anderson 40 minutes of hell style that he wants to play. They don't seem to press as well as Anderson St. John's teams have in his first 2 seasons. And honestly, the transfers haven't really given you all that much outside of, I would say, Aaron Wheeler and a little bit of Joel Soriano. We've seen flashes of Montez Mathis. He's come on of late, but he hasn't been consistent all season long. Tariq Coburn hasn't really been a consistent contributor all season long. Steph Smith as well, has had, again, a couple of nice games here and there, but not a consistent guy. We know what St. John's is going to get out of a guy like Posh Alexander. Aaron Wheeler's been phenomenal, but, they just haven't had really that depth that I thought they would have at the start of the season, where they had 6, 7, 8 guys that can really, score 15, 20 points a night for you. They haven't really had that. I think that's kind of been a big disappointment. And, on the coaching, the rotations certainly haven't been, have been subpar, I would say. It seems like he's still kind of trying to figure out, who he wants to play together and what rotations he wants to play together. I think against Butler on Friday, we saw a lineup that we hadn't seen yet this season. That shouldn't really be happening with 5 games left to go in the season, where you're still kind of trying to figure out, who's going to mesh together and play well together. They keep saying, we're going to come together, but at this point, it may have taken them too long to finally figure it out if they have.
Okay, so we kind of, I guess, addressed the weaknesses for it. But I think, too, you have to talk about the strengths. It might be a little bit more difficult given where I think the projections were at the beginning of the season, but what have been some of the strengths of St. John's this season?
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is still a team that has, I would say, 2 of the top 10 players in the conference. Julian Champagnie is an all-league caliber player. He probably won't win Big East Player of the Year, but I think that he's certainly in the conversation. Posh Alexander, you saw it on Friday. Posh was phenomenal in that game, and he just brings such a different dimension to this team on offense and on defense. With getting steals, getting out in transition, getting them easy baskets. Posh is such a game changer for them. He's a really, I would say, a top 10 player in the conference for sure. And Aaron Wheeler has really, progressed into being, I would say, kind of like a 2A type or 2B type guy. With Julian kind of the first option, Posh the second, and then Wheeler's really, evolved into like a second scoring option for this team. When you have three of really the better players in the conference, it's going to give you a good shot in most games. Now, for St. John's, as I mentioned before, Champagny has had his struggles. Wheeler certainly got off to a really, really rough start before Big East play. Really throughout non-conference play, he was almost unplayable until he kind of figured it out. And Posh has been battling injuries, missed the two most important games of the season. So when they have all three of those guys, playing well, I know that it's kind of obvious, but when they have those three guys playing well and playing well together, they're a really good team. And they are a tournament caliber team, as we saw on Friday. It's just, again, that consistency hasn't been there all season long for all three of those guys really playing well together.
All right. Now you kind of mentioned that you hit on some players. It seems like, with the St. John's, the talk is they have a new big three, and Posh Alexander at point, Julian Champagny at wing, and I guess Wheeler is kind of a tweener, to say the least, a 6'9" tweener, to say the least. But who else needs to step up for St. John's for them to get up to that next level to continue this run going forward?
Yeah, honestly, I would just say like one of the other supporting players, whoever you want to pick. If it's Dylan Adewusu, who's had his struggles over the past couple of games, he really hasn't played well the last few games, even when they've been winning. If you want Wusu to step up and be that kind of fourth guy, sure. Montez Mathis, it seems like has started to really, play within his game a lot more and stop shooting as many 3-pointers, stop shooting as many jump shots, and really use his athleticism and go to the basket and, create opportunities for himself that way. If you want to say Montez Mathis is the guy that can step up. Joel Soriano is someone who, I think has actually, I feel like he caught a little bit of a flack from St. John's fans early in the season. He's come along. He's been a good piece for them. I don't know if he's going to be, that kind of fourth option, like I mentioned, but he needs to continue to kind of be that kind of bruiser down low for them and, help against the other team's big man and kind of create or even out the rebounding battle, I should say. And, even someone like Tariq Coburn, who had a really nice game on Wednesday against Xavier, if he can step up and be a big player as well. So, they just need someone else to, in my opinion, step up and kind of be that fourth option, because again, you kind of know what you're going to get out of Champagny, Posh, and Wheeler. It's just getting someone else to really kind of be that contributor for these final couple of games of the season. In my opinion, that would really make a world of a difference for this team.
I think you mentioned Montez Mathis, and I give Mathis a lot of credit. And this is why, is because he had a horrific game against Villanova. I believe he was 1 of 15 from the field. Yeah. He had a horrific game. And then I feel like the next game he started to turn it around against UConn, where I believe he was 5 of 6 from the field, where all of his shots were within 5 feet from the basket. So that's something too. And he's kind of carried that a little bit more too. So that's something I think you got to give credit to him. And it's also too, I think people don't realize his defensive value. I think when you got someone else besides Posh Alexander out there. So I think that's something to take value in too. But I feel like just someone else. It could be anyone. It could be multiple people. You just need that someone else to come up. But this one might be tough to answer right now, but I got to ask it anyway, just for pure entertainment value. We'll see if you're right. How do you see St. John's finishing out the season?
Yeah, I think that they're going to probably break our hearts. I have to say, they've I would say that they're going to get close to the NCAA tournament picture. You look at this schedule upcoming. Creighton is a team that beat them up pretty good the first time that they played, but that's a home game now. I would assume that's going to be a really good environment at Carnesecca Arena on Wednesday night in terms of the fans showing up. They play a DePaul team that's really, battered by injuries right now and doesn't have a whole lot of options. They should win that game, if they want to get on the picture. Then they play Xavier at home, who they just beat a couple of days ago before going on the road against Marquette. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they win all 4 of these games, that they win 3 of these 4. But it just feels like somewhere along the way they're going to slip up. whether it be in these last 4 games or whether it be in the Big East tournament, in a situation where they have to, go out and win 2 games in the tournament to lock up a bid and they only win one, or if they lose in the opening round of it feels like the way this season's been going, at some point they're going to slip up here, just again because what we've seen all season long, they haven't really been able to sustain these long winning streaks. They haven't been able to sustain these long runs of play. If they played well 1 game or 2 games in a row, they haven't really been able to extend it. So just going off what we've seen all season long, that's what I would assume. I would assume that they're going to come up just short, but it would certainly be a frustrating season if they're not able to even get onto the tournament picture in these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think frustration is the best word to describe St. John's season so far. I mean, the frustration has subsided a little bit last week, but you kind of also brought up a big point with Posh Alexander. When the Big East schedule came out, people circled the week where St. John's played Villanova and UConn at the Garden. And those were the 2 games where Posh Alexander was hurt. I don't think he would have made a difference in the Villanova game in the outcome. I think in a potential 1-possession game at home against UConn, he probably would have made a difference.
Agreed.
But so those are kind of certain things to take on. I'll give the fan base credit; they're not chiming on it like some other fan bases might. They're still saying it was probably still a winnable game. But those were kind of certain things to look at. But you kind of brought up a point. You kind of feel because St. John's did dig themselves a hole. They have no margin for error. So that probably is the way to go, where they'll get close, but they won't make it to the NCAA tournament. What do you think would be a successful season for St. John's if they do not make the NCAA tournament? Could it be a significant run in the NIT? Would they even go to the NIT? Would it be maybe winning a game or 2 in the Big East tournament and making it to that Friday night game, or that was Friday night games at the Garden for the Big East? What do you think outside of an NIT, outside of an NCAA tournament berth, would be a successful season for St. John's?
Yeah, when you look at the realm of the entire season, and I would say the expectations going into the year, if they can't even make the NCAAs, I would just say there's really no success there. There's not really any room for a successful season if they do come up short. Obviously judging how the season has gone, I guess you could say if they get close, if they maybe win like 2 games in the Big East tournament and make it to Friday night, which we haven't seen in 20 years. That would be cool, but then in that case, they'd probably make the NCAAs unless they, kind of fall apart here in these last 4 games. So I guess that's one scenario where you could say, all right, that was a fun run in the Big East tournament, but we won't end up making the NCAAs. But yeah, I mean, you look at the expectations going into this season, it was all about NCAA tournament or bust. They don't look like they're going to be this, great team next year. They obviously didn't make it in Anderson's first 2 seasons. I know some people want to put Mike Anderson on the hot seat. That talk has kind of, gone away the last week because they've won a couple of games. But I think that's a conversation that has to be had, at least if they can't even make the tournament this season. I don't know how you would ever consider that a successful season when the expectation going into the year was to win a tournament game, to not even make the tournament and, to not even really get near the bubble, at least until mid-February now. That's a problem, and that's a season that I wouldn't be able to call a success. And when this team only really has a run really every 3-4 years to go to the NCAA tournament, it makes it just that much more important to actually have a successful year that year. And St. John just hasn't been able to do that this season.
Well, I think we talked about this season. We kind of talked about the immediate future, but let's talk about the future. We're talking about the success of the program. Because you have mentioned, some people have been calling for Mike Anderson's job and stuff like that. A lot of people are calling Rick Pitino. Personally, I do not see Rick Pitino coming to St. John's. I don't see that going. I feel like Rick Pitino will sign a lifetime contract with Iona, and then 3 to 6 months later go somewhere else. That's kind of the way I feel about that. I don't think he's coming to St. John's. But when we talk about Mike Anderson and the future of the program, what do you think, after this season, what does Mike Anderson need to do to, I guess, solidify the St. John's program?
Yeah. Well, first of all, he needs to recruit locally a little bit better. The recruiting really hasn't been outstanding. He's hit on a couple of guys that weren't really, high level prospects. Obviously, Julian being really an unranked guy, Posh only being a 3-star recruit. He's hit on those guys for sure. But, in terms of getting these higher level New York City kids to stay home or to stay with his program. Continue building those resources or those relationships. I think he's done a decent job at least, but that needs to improve. And honestly, with the way that college basketball is nowadays with the transfer market, he needs to recruit better with transfers. You look at his records for transfers so far; they have not been good. He has not really hit on a whole lot of transfers. Wheeler obviously has been really, really good. As I mentioned, Soriano, I thought, has really improved this season. But, you go back the last couple of years, you'd be hard pressed to find very many transfers that came into this program and, had an immediate impact. I would say really just Nick Rutherford and maybe Rasheem Dunn, who ended up actually playing pretty well here for 2 years. Yeah. But, even that's kind of pushing it. Like they've missed on a lot of guys, Ian Steer, Damian Sears, you can go on and obviously a couple guys this year as well. They haven't really done a great job with transfers. And, the way that college basketball is going nowadays, you're going to have to fill your roster with 3, 4, 5 transfers pretty much every season long. And if he continues to show that he can't, recruit transfers at a high level, or he doesn't have a knack for recruiting transfers at a high level, that's going to be a problem. You need a coach who can do that. So just, in terms of the recruiting, I think those are the two main things. And then, his style of play, I think that it needs to evolve somewhat with the times. The 40 minutes of hell style, worked 15, 20 years ago when there weren't 4 guys on a court or on your opponent that could hit threes at any time. The college basketball game nowadays, everyone could shoot the three, and it seems like they get burned every single year by that. That needs to adjust in some way. I know that he's not going to completely overhaul his system, in his 20th season of coaching, but at some point that, you need to take a look and say, why are we ranked so low in 3-point defense every single year? And I think it's the system that we play. So again, he's not going to overhaul the whole system, but tweaks need to be made to it for sure to adapt with the modern game where really, like I said, 4 guys on a court on each team at any time can shoot a three. It's got to adapt in some ways.
Yeah. I do think you bring up a good point with like fitting the style, maybe has to evolve. I do see they made some in-season adjustments. You see a lot more cutters coming through. They're using Julian Champagnie in the post a lot more often, which I think, brings up his potential draft stock, which is going to be something. We'll see how it goes. I think there were certain times in the year Julian Champagnie was playing like a future NBA star.
Yeah.
We'll see how he does going forward. I mean, the thing is too, he's 6'8". I think he needs to be a little more consistent from 3, but he can do a lot more than just shoot. So I think those are certain things to look at going forward. But Troy, before we leave, can you tell us where we can find you on social media?
Sure. Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Troy Mauriello. The last name is Mauriello. For St. John's fans, I do the Seeing Red podcast. It comes out once every week, pretty much. Usually I do a midweek show. So you can definitely check that out for all St. John's basketball coverage.
All right. And you can find us on Sports Talk Line. You can hit that like and subscribe button to find all these episodes of Battle for the Big East. And remember, everyone, to listen like you play with intensity.